You better grab a beverage for this one and sit tight and hold on, because we are going to go dive deep into this video about the reptilians and what they actually want from Earth. Now, I am going to be very clear. When I say reptilians, I mean a variety of different things. Now, I also understand that these are modern mythologies to describe ancient ways of viewing the world and why demonic activity is here and what they actually want from us and how they actually move, etc. I'm not denying that reptilians are not real, but I'm not confirming this either. Instead, I want to look at this from a psychological perspective and a mythological perspective and see what we can discern from it reasonably and logically. And I'm not dismissing these things, of course, but I'm not completely accepting them either. I'm entertaining them in this video because I will find it best suited for a video like this to start with my own experience with the reptilians. And it was the last psychedelic trip that I've ever done, and it was in September of 2022, I believe. Yeah, 2022. And it was a long time ago. So it was years ago, 4 years ago nearly. And I had done a large dose of psychedelic psilocybin mushrooms. And at first it was very fantastic. It was a very great experience. Everything was going very well. I was in silent darkness as I usually would, as per Terence McKenna's recommendation. And I moved through the darkness, and I saw right before things started to get a turn for the worst, I saw a large tree, and it had this golden orb around it. And it was as if to say that the tree of life was the everlasting quality of life in and of itself, and that trees themselves were forms of light emerging from the darkness that is the soil. So, this is where things get a turn for the worst. And I'm not going to say everything that happened in this psychedelic experience simply because I don't think that it's necessary for me to go through these types of, well, imaginations for other people to imagine my imagination. Let's say that. So I'm going to be as concise as possible while also just describing the experience as it was. So I saw these cowboy aliens immediately after this. And the mushroom told me, "Oh, so you think you know something about consciousness, eh?" Just like that. And that was immediately when I went into a spiral, and I was in this desert. And there was like purple lightning happening everywhere. It was very cloudy, and there was these flying cowboy aliens that were all over the terrain. And they were all over the terrain, and this was not the first time or the last time that I saw this type of thing, like in regard to the cowboy reptilian aliens, because I had a dream and a vision about them beforehand, but it was very brief, and I didn't really remember too much about it. And after this psychedelic experience, I've experienced multiple visions where I've had these in my deep meditations. I've encountered these types of what I call characters of the unconscious. So, and I actually derived that term from my book, in the book of Oldishness. That's one of the reasons why I call them characters of the unconscious, is because I don't know exactly what these characters are, but I know that they're a phenomenon in the unconscious experience through the, confronting the adversity of my unconscious through my consciousness. So I saw these cowboy lizard aliens, and they were reptilians, but they were like lizards, right? They were very, very much so like lizards. And I determined that they didn't really want to see Earth thrive. They wanted to see the Earth turn to dust. They wanted to see the Earth turn to ash. And I telepathically was communicating with these things. I don't know what else to call them other than the things, right? But they felt like they were alien. And when I say that, at the time, I did not really think that we were the only ones that existed in the universe, because at the time I still thought that the Earth was a globe. And so I figured that, okay, well, because the Earth is a globe, there's bound to be some kind of form of life elsewhere. Now I am not a global person. I'm not a globalist per se. I'm not a flat earther either. I am a person that experiences what they experience and embodies what they know. And the thing is that I cannot truly know or verify if the world is a globe or flat or whatever. All I know is what I can experience and what I can verify through my experience. So it seemed to me that these reptilians were, these cowboy lizard reptilian alien things, they wanted to see Earth be destroyed. And I asked them why, telepathically, like, what do you have against us? And they essentially said that they were afraid of what we might become. And they don't want me, because I was there in that space with them, they don't want me to know what I could become. And they're going to do everything that they can to ensure that I do not realize my own potential. Not in so many words, but that was the energy that they were giving me telepathically in this experience. And from then on, it was a horrific bloodbath. I just saw blood. I saw, and I'm not even gonna go into a lot of the details, but I saw a lot of blood. Lots of blood just pouring like a flood over into the desert from these lizard reptilian cowboy things. And I was so appalled by what I saw. It was so horrific. It was so terrible that to this day I have yet to do another psychedelic trip. However, I'm very grateful for that experience because it showed me what was really going on in a way that I could actually understand it. Because what's happening outside of here, we can't truly know what's what. You know, that we really can't truly know what's what until we can verify it from multiple sources. Because if something is truthful, we're going to be able to recognize it from multiple perspectives. The classic parable that I use to describe this is the rock in the river parable, where let's say there's a rock in the river. And from your perspective over there on that side of the river, you see that the rock is round. But then on my side of the river, I see, well, there's actually some moss here and it looks flat. Well, who's right? Well, we don't know until we can verify it. But we can't really verify it. We can all agree that there's a rock there, though. We can all agree that there's something there. But we don't really know what it is and how it is and why it is. So we can't always agree on what the rock is defined as, but that's kind of the whole point, right? Like, that's the soul of existence. That's God. I don't need to believe in God anymore. I simply know that there is a invisible, undefinable source and force that moves through each and every one of us, in which we can see the beauty and the truth of life in of itself as the experience that it is. Now, does this mean that I don't have a relationship with God? Absolutely not. That is one of my core principles, and this is why I'm speaking about this, is because this is where we get into the for those that are still around, the creme de la creme of what this message is really about, and what I think that the reptilians really want. Because we've seen these myths and archetypes of vampires or demons, right? these dark spirits. Now, I'm not saying that these dark spirits don't exist, and I'm not saying that vampires are not real in the sense that, yes, as for the files, everybody knows what I'm really talking about here. The files of the spirit of this time, right? The long-awaited Blepstein files, right? So it's very clear that they are literally eating babies and drinking adrenochrome and blood and all these crazy things, right? All the crazy stuff. And they're admitting this, like they're just open about it. And they want us to know about it. It's part of the psyop. And the psyop is that they want to convince us that they can do whatever they want and we have, quote unquote, no power. These are, for all intents and purposes, the reptilians. So the reptilians need you to believe that you have no power, you have no imagination, because they want the flood of blood to fall upon the land. That was really what the psychedelic experience itself demonstrated to me, is that, and this is also why they need the blood of human beings, is because this is where we get into some topics where I'm trying to bridge the mythological and the psychological, so bear with me for a second, because this is why the lizard people, the reptilians, would need your energy and to harvest your energy and to drink blood like vampires. Because if we look back through time and through archaeological evidence, there's actually reptilian types of statues and the gray alien types of things, but they looked like vampires, right? The vampires looked very alien and green and gray, and they had the sharp teeth and everything, just like a lizard would for like a snake, right? So there's these, you can think about them as alien, because when I say alien, what I mean is not of this biological earth, this psychophysiological earth. That's what I mean by that. And so the theory is that the reptilians need human blood to sustain their disguise as human beings. Now, I myself have also experienced reptilians, and I see these forms of reptiles in people. Now, you might think that that's a little whatever, wacko or wuku, but if you've made it this far in the video, then you definitely think that this is something worth discussing and acknowledging. So, there was once a woman that I saw, and this was only about a year or so ago, and I saw her at the gym, and when she looked at me, I swear on everything that is good and holy that I have actually, I don't even really believe in holiness, but holiness is just wholeness. But anything that is whole and wholeness, I saw in her eyes a reptile, the reptilian eyes, with the slit eye. She had these yellow, almost like snake eyes looking thing, and she was looking at me as if she knew exactly, like it wasn't her, it was the reptilian that inhabited her body. And her body, like she's a very good looking woman. She's a very attractive woman. But she had looked at me, and the reptilian spirit saw that I saw her, or it, or whatever it was. I know that it was possessing a female body, but I don't know if that was a male or a female reptilian. I don't even know if they can have male or female reptilians. Now, I'm also aware that David Icke has talked a lot about this, and I'm not as familiar with his work as I'd like to be when it comes to this topic, but it just seems so outlandish sometimes, because I'm aware that I'm open to these things. I'm open to talk about these things, But if I can't verify these materials, it's hard for me to want to entertain it even. So I've been looking for ways to entertain this, and one of these is the archaeological evidence. And we obviously have been around dinosaurs. There are literal maps of dinosaurs out of Antarctica, of what looks like Antarctica. It doesn't have the ice that it does today, but there are dinosaurs out of old maps from the 1300s, the 1500s that look like they were, Stegosaurus or the Triceratops. And it looked as if humans were among these creatures. And so it seems to me that the history that we've been told and we've been lied to about, basically, because everything's a lie at this point, but the history we've been told is not the history that we are discovering in the slightest. And I even have I have a book on the grand medieval bestiary, and the kinds of animals in there are obviously, some of them are obviously, fantasy based, but then others you think to yourself, I think they were describing something, because especially with the detail and the way that they talked about the creature and what the creature did and how it behaved, it just seems as though there's something deeper going on there. There's something deeper going on here. And the best thing that I can perceive to be the case is that what they really want, what they're really after, is to keep us from recognizing that we as human beings have the capacity to unify the species and the populace as a whole in a way that we have no idea. But it's not always going to be that way. Like, we could end up like the lizard people, the cowboy lizard aliens, right? We could end up like them, but we're not there yet, because we haven't completely lost our innocence as a species just yet. However, if you look at the food that we're growing, I saw a statistic just the other day. It said, like, if in order to have like an orange, the vitamins of an orange from 1900s or so, like 1900 to 1920, you'd need to eat 8 oranges or 10 oranges or whatever to have the same amount of nutrients in that one orange from 100 years ago plus. Can you imagine? What does that say about our food and what we're really eating and how we're really living? And why this is so important is that our livelihood, the species, depends on it. Now, you might say, well, who cares about the species, right? Like, if this is all a dream anyway, then who cares? Who cares? And that's a good question. Because it's not so clear on why this is so important to talk about, or why this is needing to be talked about. And it's not clear on why you'd want to further a bloodline anyway. Like, why do you want to further a bloodline? that quality of wanting to be a parent or wanting to, carry on and produce a legacy, like that's just a human instinct, right? Like, you can transcend that. It's like, well, yeah, you can transcend that, but why not? Like, maybe part of the wholeness, right? We were just talking about holiness and wholeness. Maybe part of the wholeness of our own species is recognizing that we were born with this inherentness quality to want to reproduce, to want to love life, to want to give life, much like the sun. The sun is a giver of life. There's not one thing that you can possibly look at in this whole entire cosmos, this physical mathematical construct, and look at it and say, like, oh yeah, the sun didn't need that. Even the mushrooms, I was just thinking about this the other day, like, mushrooms grow in the dark, right? And they have to grow in the dark, but they feed off of things that needed the light. That's And then they create their own light in the darkness. The mushrooms do, essentially. They're just so cool and so powerful that they don't need, they don't need the light anymore. They've cultivated themselves. And if you've ever seen mycelium and the way that it grows, it's so fascinating. I mean, it's super fascinating. I mean, you'll be able to see it if you go into the forest. You can see it there too sometimes, but just the way that the mushrooms grow and the way that they know how to communicate with one another so well. I mean, it's just, mycology is so cool and it's magnificent, and it truly is like a network. And I honestly think that that's exactly how humans are. Human brains, for example, are not, psychologically speaking, we are not designed to hold information. We're designed to be an antenna. We are designed to be a satellite for consciousness. That's how sometimes people can get into a flow and they don't even know what they're saying, right? They're in that flow state. They call it a flow state. Well, that's the normal state. Your flow state is the normal state, right? That's really what it comes down to. The flow state is the normal state. It's not supposed to be so like, like I've accessed something higher. It's like, no, that's actually your normal accessing point for your consciousness. We are just made to believe that it's extraordinary. And that's really the same thing that I view with visions, right? And confronting the unconscious. I've differentiated my perspective of the astral projection and the moving into what I call the mystical beyond in my book here, the book of Oldishness. And I've talked about that in the visions as well. But psychologically speaking, when it comes back to the reptilians, because this is more so a new phenomenon, it's a new myth. Now, I'm not saying that the myth is not real or that it's not true. I'm just saying that it's a new myth being propagated into the society, to where the whole point of these new myths that are taking place is that, well, we're entering a time of novelty, right? I mean, think about even my own psychedelic experience where I saw these cowboy lizard aliens and reptilians. That in of itself is a mythology, and it's an experience of a mythology. It doesn't make it less real, but it describes something that is actually going on in a new way. And that's what we are doing in the spirit of this time, is we're giving birth to the archaic in something new. And that's exactly what we're seeing here with all these archaeological records and the maps and everything that we've talked about earlier. There's a lot of information and data to be analyzed and assessed properly, because again, history is not what we thought it was, and it still is not. So I hope that this was a well-rounded discussion on this topic, and as practical, but also as psychologically insightful and compounding in clarity as we move forward, as it was and as it hopefully is. And with all that being said, I hope you enjoyed your beverage there, and cheers to you. Stay blessed. Peace. Until next time.